Last week we were studying the 17th discipline in the group of 18 austerities. Tonight we begin with verse 127, which deals with the last of the 18 austerities, namely the desire for liberation. Verse number 127. Samsara bandha nirmuktihi kada jhatiti me bhavet iti ya sudrudha buddhiririta sa mamukshita. The strong feeling to end as early as possible one's bondage to the world is the characteristic feature of one who desires liberation. The desire for liberation has been emphasized as one of the most important requirements for achieving any progress in our spiritual quest. Unless one has this strong urge to achieve freedom from the clutches of the relative existence, it is very difficult to make any progress in our quest for spiritual unfoldment. There are many other requirements which one is required to have in order to achieve liberation. Among those requirements are included a human birth, company of holy people for whom one can go for guidance and inspiration, the grace of a teacher, some knowledge of the scriptures, and other requirements. But among all of these requirements, mumukshutva, or the desire for liberation, is the most important one. Because if a person has all the other requirements but this one, then it does not matter. If a person is not interested in this line at all, even though he or she has all the other facilities, then that person cannot make any progress. It is just like a person having a lot of food at his or her disposal but not having the hunger. If there is no hunger, then the person cannot eat. But if the person is hungry, so hungry, then he or she will somehow find the food, even if the food is not readily accessible. By some means or other, that person will go and seek food and have the food. So this hunger for unfoldment is mumukshutva, desire for liberation. In the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna has said that only a rare person here and there will have this desire for liberation. And even among those few who have this desire for liberation, rare indeed is the soul that really finds the liberation, that achieves the ultimate goal of human existence. Sri Krishna says, Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatati siddhaye yatatam api siddhanam kaschinmam vetti tattvataha. Of thousands and thousands of people, one person maybe will even make any attempt in this direction to understand the true nature of human existence. Most people are not interested in this line at all. They are interested in pursuing the worldly pursuits, the desire for name and fame, a comfortable life, companionship of an agreeable person, and other pleasures that this world has to offer. That is what most people are interested in. Just one person out of thousands and thousands of human beings happens to be interested in this pursuit. And if you take a group of such persons, rare people, one among them may find liberation. Kaschin mam veti tattvataha. The true understanding of one's real nature, divine nature, occurs to one of those few people who try. Not everybody who tries will be crowned with success in this direction. They will have to try for a long time. Why is this? Why does not everyone who makes an attempt for spiritual progress is granted this success in this endeavor. The reason is that though all the other facilities may be available to that person may not have the complete urge to find liberation. Most people just go through the motions of being a spiritual person. They join a monastery, and then they go to the temple every day. They do japa, meditation and worship and study of scriptures, service to holy men. But their heart is not 100% in that. They still have some lingering desires, subtle desires. The grosser desires may have been controlled by putting oneself in that situation, where one is protected from allurements. But the subtle desire will still remain. They will not easily go. They remain inside the mind. And then the person's heart is not 100% in that spiritual path. So that is why the progress is very slow. So what is to be done? We have to somehow intensify our desire. It is not unique to spiritual progress alone. In any other field of human endeavor, unless a person's heart is there 100%, the progress will be partial. Whether it is in the field of business, making money, or any other field, scholarship or whatever, or research, the person's heart and soul must be in it 100%. Otherwise, the progress will be slow and partial. Same is the case in the field of spiritual pursuit. Sri Ramakrishna used to tell the story of this little boy who used to live with his teacher, as was the custom in ancient India. The boys used to go to a teacher's house and stay there, as if he were a member of the teacher's family. And the teacher's wife would provide food and other facilities. The boys would work, and then they would study under the guidance of the teacher. This was known as Gurukula. Now this boy was doing everything that was required of a student under those circumstances, but still he was not satisfied with the progress he was making. So one day, after many years of staying in the teacher's house and studying, that boy went to the teacher and said, "Sir, I am not making any progress, although I am doing everything you are asking me to do. I am attending all the classes, studying the scriptures, doing all the work assigned to me, doing japa and meditation and everything, but still, why there is no progress?" The teacher smiled, and he didn't say anything. He simply took the boy to a nearby lake, and then they both entered the water. And then suddenly the teacher held the boy's head and pressed the head of the boy underneath the water surface. He held it there for a few seconds and then released. The boy stood up, panting for breath. And then the teacher asked, "How do you feel now?" And the boy said, "Sir, I thought I was going to die. I just wanted to breathe. Why did you press my head underwater?" Then the teacher said, "If you have that much urge that you had to breathe and to continue to live, to see God, then you will see God." That is how intense one's desire for liberation should be in order to find liberation. We find this teaching in Sri Ramakrishna's parables. And another time he said to someone who asked why we are not making much progress in our spiritual quest, Sri Ramakrishna said, "If you have for God the combined attraction of the mother for her child, of the miser for his money, and of the husband for his wife, then you can see God." That's how intensely we should love God, our chosen ideal, whether personal or impersonal ideal. Then we can achieve that goal. Otherwise, if the person makes half-hearted attempt, then the result will be proportionate. It will be slow. Gradually the desire will intensify if the person keeps up steadily in this line, but it will take time. Sri Ramakrishna's life itself is an example of this intensity for seeing God, for achieving a vision of the Divine Mother, his chosen ideal. Every evening after intense spiritual practice, he would become frustrated. He would roll on the ground with tears in his eyes, and he would cry, "Oh Divine Mother, another day has gone by, and you have not shown yourself to me. How long should I wait like this for you?" He would pine, he would cry like this every evening. Still there was no vision of the Divine Mother. You can imagine how intense his spiritual practice was. It is described to some extent in his biography, Sri Ramakrishna the Great Master by Swami Sharadananda. But not all the details are given, because all of these disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, the 16 monastic disciples, they went to him after he had completed his spiritual disciplines. So whatever information they could get about his spiritual austerities, they explained it to their disciples. But we do not know how intense his austerities were, how intense his desire was to see the Divine Mother, Goddess Kali. So he was so restless to see the Divine Mother. And one day, he became so desperate that he said, no, this will not do. Either I will die or she has to come. So he took a sword in the Kali temple, and then he was about to kill himself. He said to Divine Mother, unless you come now, I am going to kill myself. This is it. And then at that moment, the vision came. We have this description in the Great Master, in Sri Ramakrishna, the Great Master. So was the case with Lord Buddha. He did intense austerities for a long time, but still he did not get that enlightenment that he was seeking. Then he became so desperate that he said, I'm going to sit down here under this tree. Let this body fall. I don't care. I'm not going to get up from this seat unless I find the illumination. He made such a determined effort that eventually he got the illumination. That must be the intensity of desire for liberation. That is what Sri Ramakrishna was explaining. Otherwise, we will have to try for a long time before any progress becomes discernible. Now the next question is, how to intensify our desire? We all have some desire for liberation, otherwise we would not be here. We would not be studying the scriptures and going to the temple and doing the austerities we are doing. We do have desire for liberation. Otherwise, why would people come here on a Friday evening? There are dozens of other things people could be doing, more interesting things. But the desire that we have for liberation is not that intense as Sri Ramakrishna indicated in his parables. So what is the solution? How to intensify the desire for liberation to such an extent that we can make quick progress? The answer to this question is in another book written by Shankaracharya called Vivek Chodamani. In Vivek Chodamani, Shankaracharya has suggested this solution to this situation. He says, Mandamadhyama roopapi vairagyena shamadina prasadena gurosyayam pravriddha suyate phalam. Shankaracharya is saying that even though a person's desire for liberation is not very strong, it is mediocre. Manda means vague, weak desire. Madhyama, medium type of desire. Not very strong, not very intense. Even if such is the case, it can be intensified. Pravriddha, it can be made intense. Suyate phalam, it can be made to bear fruit. Namely, liberation can be achieved. How? By vairagyena, by practicing renunciation, by reasoning, by cultivating viveka, discrimination, by reasoning constantly the transitory nature of this world and everything it has to offer, and then by concentrating our mind on the infinite, on our chosen ideal, whether it is a personal aspect of God or impersonal aspect of God. Concentrating our mind on that goal that we have set for ourselves. Shamadina, the 6 austerities, Shamadama and others that we are studying now. Withdrawing the mind from unnecessary objects and experiences and concentrating it on our chosen ideal. By doing these austerities, as enjoined in the various scriptures, and prasadena guroho, by seeking the grace of one's teacher. This is also very important. By doing all the austerities and by seeking the grace of the teacher, the not so intense desire for liberation can be made intense and can be made to bear fruit. So these things we have to do. and then we can see the progress. Otherwise, we will be just like the mice that were eating the puffed rice. Sri Ramakrishna gives this another beautiful parable of why people don't make much progress in their spiritual quest, although they are apparently satisfying all the requirements. He likens such people to the mice in a grain dealer's warehouse. A grain dealer has a great quantity of grains of various kinds stored in the warehouse, and he wants to protect the grain from being eaten by the mice. So what the grain dealer does, he scatters puffed rice all around the real grain. The puffed rice is very inexpensive, and it also quite fragrant and crunchy. Now the mice that come there to eat the grain, they are attracted by the puffed rice that is scattered all around the real grain, and they go on eating the puffed rice. It is crunchy, so they eat the puffed rice all night, the mice, and then the next morning the security people come and then they drive away the mice during the daytime. So this way the mice are distracted. The Divine Mother does the same thing to us. Several times Sri Ramakrishna was asked this question: why does not God give us liberation, though we try? And then Sri Ramakrishna said, the Divine Mother does not want her play to end. This is her play. This world is her sport. If everybody gets liberation, then there is no more world. That will never happen. There are always some people who are interested in continuing the game. So for those people, she puts these puffed rice. They are quite satisfied. The puffed rice in our case is all the distractions, such as the comforts of worldly life, wealth, lot of money, other comforts of life, car and other things, and name and fame, scholarship, good family life, everything. All of these is equivalent to the puffed rice. So people become interested in pursuing these things, and they spend their whole lifetime. They are so happy. And the Divine Mother says to herself, oh, my child there is quite happy. He doesn't want me. He is quite satisfied with the puffed rice that I have given, with the toys I have given. He is satisfied with the Rolls-Royce cars, with the name and fame, with the scholarship and the job and everything. So unless he becomes disinterested in those things, unless he starts crying for me, I will not go. If he starts crying for me, then I will go. This is what Sri Ramakrishna said. It's just like any household mother. She wants to do her household work, but the child is also there, so she gives the child some toys to play with. As long as the child is playing with the toys, she watches from time to time, periodically, and if the child is happy, she will let the child play. She will not go. But if the child throws away all the toys and starts crying for mother, then she will drop whatever she is doing and goes and takes the child in her lap. This is exactly the case with mumukshutva. If we have the intense desire, we see her. Why we don't see her is because our desire is not intense enough. We have to remember how intense the desire should be. Sri Ramakrishna's own example. How much austerities he did, and still how long it took for him to get the vision of the Divine Mother. So this is mumukshutva. This mumukshutva, the desire for liberation, has been emphasized in all the scriptures. So this concludes the discussion of 18 austerities that Shankaracharya presented in the previous section on shama, or how to achieve tranquility of the mind. If a person follows these austerities, then he or she is assured of tranquility of mind. The next topic that Shankaracharya takes up for discussion in this book is Dhamma, or control of the mind. So we are now discussing the 6 austerities. Shama, tranquility of mind, which we just now completed studying. Next one, second one is Dhamma, control of the mind, purifying and strengthening the mind. Third one is Titiksha, or forbearance, indifference to all the sufferings that inevitably come to us in our life. that is titiksha. Uparati is withdrawal of the mind from the external objects and experiences. And shraddha is cultivation of faith in the words of the scripture, in the words of the teacher. And faith is described in the 17th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. And last one is samadhana, concentration of the mind on the chosen ideal. These are the 6 disciplines to be practiced by all aspirants. So we finished the first one, Shama, which had 18 subdivisions under it. Now we go to the second of the major disciplines, Dhamma, or control of the mind. And this is in verse 128. Brahmacharyadibir dharmai buddher dosha nivrittaye dandanam dhamma ityahur dhamma shabdarthako vidah. It is by the practice of continence and other virtues that the intellect becomes purified. That is why the wise say that Dhamma, or the restraint of the senses, is like a rod to check the erring. Dhamma means control. Here, control of the mind. The natural tendency of the human mind is to go outward into the external world and engage itself in numerous diversions. If this is allowed to go on unchecked, not only will we be wasting precious time, we have a limited time given to us at our disposal. Not only will we be wasting this precious time, but we'll be strengthening this tendency of the mind. And the more we let this happen, the more difficult it will become with time to reverse this trend and to make the mind engage itself in spiritual pursuits. It's more difficult to make it return to the spiritual path the longer we let this happen in our lives. So this tendency of the mind to go outward and engage itself in pleasant activities should be checked by various austerities, such as the practice of brahmacharya. Brahmacharyadibihi dharmai. Brahmacharya, satya, asteya, non-injury, truthfulness, purity, all of those austerities we just now finished studying in the preceding section. By means of following those austerities, brahmacharya, continence and other austerities, purity, internal and external, we have to control the mind. Those are the means for controlling the mind. Buddher dosha nivrittaye, to remove the impurities of the mind. Impurities are the unwanted thought patterns. The unwanted thought patterns will come just by sheer force of habit. That's what happens when we sit down for meditation. All the thoughts that were not there in the conscious mind during the rest of the day, they will take the opportunity to come because there is a little bit of free space there in our mind. We want to put God there, or our chosen ideal. And then the thoughts that are just waiting under pressure, and they all come up and then they present themselves. And we wonder from where these thoughts have come. Do I really have these desires in my mind? Shocking things will come to our mind. So those are the impurities. Dandanam dhamma ityahu. Dhamma shabdarthako vidah. Those people, scholars, who know the real meaning of Dhamma, they say dandanam dhamma ityahu. Danda means a staff, a cane, that is danda. That danda is equivalent to the austerities. By means of these austerities, we have to straighten the mind. We have to say, this is the path in which you are required to go to achieve this goal and not in any other direction. So that is Dhamma. Dhamma means control of the mind. In the subsequent verses, Shankaracharya has given the detailed procedure for achieving this control of the mind. 129. Tattad vritti nirodhena bahyendriya vinigraha yogino dhamma ityahur manasa shanti sadhanam. Here we have some more explanation of the procedure of Dhamma, or control of the mind. The yogis say that Dhamma, or the restraint of the senses, is a means to the control of the mind. They consider that it is conducive to the attainment of tranquility. this verse is very similar to the second aphorism of Patanjali in Raja Yoga. In Swami Vivekananda's book on Raja Yoga, the second part of the book is a commentary, explanation of the Yoga Sutras, the aphorisms of Patanjali on Raja Yoga. In that part, the second aphorism is a very important one. The first is simply an introduction. The first aphorism says, let us now discuss concentration. It's just a way of introducing this subject. The second aphorism is the key. The second aphorism says in Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, Yogas chitta vritti nirodha. The same word is used here by Shankaracharya. Vritti nirodha. Vritti means the modifications, the waves that occur, the thought waves that occur in our minds. Nirodha means control. Making the thought waves conform to our desired pattern, taking it towards our chosen ideal and not letting it go anywhere it pleases, which is the natural tendency of the mind. So that is the method that Shankaracharya is describing here. This is the same method that Patanjali suggested in his Raja Yoga. Now I would urge you to read the commentary of Swami Vivekananda on that second aphorism. This is the second aphorism of Patanjali's Yoga Sutra. Yoga chitta vritti nirodha. In that, Swamiji has explained the mechanics of this procedure. What happens when we perceive objects or experiences and how to control that. That explanation is given. But briefly, this is what Swamiji has written in that commentary. When we see an external object, a series of actions take place. The organs of perception, such as the eyes, the ears, and the skin, and so on, the tongue, and so on, these are not the real organs. These are the outermost instruments. By themselves, they have no power whatsoever. Because the eye may be open, and if the mind is not attached to it, we won't be able to see anything. Swamiji gives this example. Supposing a person is asleep with his mind open, though the whole world is moving in front of that person, when the person is asleep, that person is not seeing anything. Because the eye, the outermost instrument, is not functioning. For the eye to function, for the organs of perception and organs of action, such as hands and feet, to function, the mind has to motivate, to activate the instruments. The instruments themselves are incapable of taking any action, although the object of perception is right in front of them. So that is the outermost instrument, the eye and ear and so forth. There are 10 instruments. 5 of them are organs of perception and 5 of them are organs of action. Then the next level is the brain center in the brain. That is the organ of perception or of action, motor organ. The nerve center in the brain. The third level is the mind. The mind is the one that causes the perception or the action to take place with the help of the brain center and with the help of the outermost organ or instrument, such as the eyes and ears and hands and feet. Of all the impressions, that is the mind stuff, like the huge memory system. And then the determinative faculty, the buddhi, takes that impression and analyzes that one. And it decides whether this is a good impression or a bad impression, preferable or pleasurable. Do I want to continue with this or do I want to drop it? If it is something hot, the hands are burning, buddhi says, leave it right now. You don't continue to clutch hot thing. The moment the heat is perceived, buddhi says, drop it. And then if it is something pleasurable, buddhi says, hold on to it. So buddhi's function is determination, analysis and determination. That is buddhi. And then ahankara is the ego, is the one that really enjoys these things or suffers. Both suffering and enjoyment are done by the ego. So like this, the explanation is given by Swamiji. The outermost organs, the mind, and then the determinative faculty, the buddhi, and the egoism, ahankara, all of these are various processes in the chitta, the overall mind stuff. This is explained in the Raja Yoga, in Swamiji's commentary. The modifications of the waves is what causes the thoughts to happen. These modifications are called vritti, and that's what Shankaracharya is saying here. Vritti nirodhena. By controlling the modifications of the thought patterns, the thought waves in the mind, we can control the mind. Not by controlling the outermost organ. You can close the eyes or you can close the ear, but still the mind is active. Supposing there is no external stimulus, supposing you close your eyes and sit down in a dark room, I don't want to see anything bad, I don't want to hear anything bad. But still it does not mean that the mind is controlled, because even without the help of the external stimulus, the mind is capable of projecting from its own storehouse of earlier impressions the memories, and then it enjoys or suffers. Even if you cut out all the external stimuli, the mind is capable of producing its own stimulus from the internal storehouse already present in the mind. So it remembers something that happened a long time ago. It may be a pleasurable experience and it enjoys. Oh, how nice it was. I was flying here and there and this pleasant thing happened. The mind dwells on that one. Nothing is there available physically, but still from the previous storehouse, the mind is capable of indulging in such enjoyment. Or it can be a negative enjoyment too. Misery, some miserable experience happened. How much I suffered. I was crying. Oh, the pain is remembered and then the mind suffers. So both positive and negative experiences can be gone through in the absence of the external stimulus. So the outer organs are not the important ones. There is no use trying to control the mind by shutting out the activities of the outermost organs. That's what Swamiji is trying to say. The important thing is to control the thought waves, the patterns that arise in the mind. There we have to catch hold of the thought patterns, and then we have to direct them in the direction we want them to go, and withdraw them from the direction from where it is not advisable for us to go. The method has been suggested, the method of controlling the thought waves has been suggested in two places, primarily. Two techniques have been suggested. One in the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna has suggested one method of controlling the thought waves. The second method is suggested by Patanjali in the Yoga Sutras. Both are similar. They are not all that different as they might appear at first sight. In the Bhagavad Gita, 6th chapter, which deals with the science of concentration, Dhyana Yoga, Sri Krishna says, Yato yato nischarati manaschanchalamasthiram tato tato niyamyetad atmanyeva vasham nayet. We sit down for meditation, the mind wanders every place. The body is in one place. All the external stimuli have been cut out. We are sitting in the temple. There is nobody to distract, no sound. But still the mind is roaming everywhere in this world. When this happens, Sri Krishna's suggestion in the Bhagavad Gita is, as the mind wanders away from the goal set for oneself, from the object of meditation, as many times as it strays from the object of meditation, that many times you have to gently bring it back and engage it deliberately on the object of meditation. You should say to the mind, now we are thinking about some experience in London that happened 4 years ago. That's not what I want you to do. Please come back to the temple and look at the picture in front of you. That is the object of my meditation right now. Let us dwell on that one. Within a few seconds it goes someplace else, and some other experience it tries to create and enjoy from its own storehouse of previous experiences, from the memory. And then you should again tell the mind, no, come back from there. This is the object of meditation. Let us dwell on this one. A few more seconds. Then again, it unknowingly, it will just go to some other place. So as many times as the mind roams freely, so many times it has to be gently brought back and made to engage itself on the object of meditation. That is the method suggested by Sri Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. As the wavering and unsteady mind wanders off, away from the object of meditation, it has to be brought back under the control of the self. Atmanyeva vasham nayet. It has to be controlled by the self and made to dwell on the object of meditation. In the Yoga Sutra of Patanjali, Patanjali has suggested a similar method. He says, if the mind strays away from the object of meditation, and then tries to think some other kinds of thoughts, then you have to feed the opposing thought. Supposing the mind just goes and tries to engage in some pleasurable experience, all imaginary, nothing physically, because we are in the temple meditating, then you should create the opposite. No, that is not the right thing to do. Let us now worship God. Let us now dwell on the holy feet of God. Or let us dwell on this formless aspect of God which we have chosen for meditation. We should put the opposite thought. Supposing the mind tries to hate someone. Oh, that man did like this to me, he insulted me, I'm going to kill him or beat him. Love everybody because God is in everyone. Put the opposite thought. Whatever thought comes which is not related to the object of meditation, the opposite thought has to be fed to the mind and then it has to be brought back to the object of meditation. These are similar techniques described by Patanjali and Sri Krishna in the Yoga Sutra and in the Bhagavad Gita respectively. So Shankaracharya is saying the same thing. By controlling the thought waves, by vritti nirodha, the mind has to be controlled. We have to somehow, by long struggle, by consistent effort, we have to establish this mastery over the mind. We only want to think the thoughts that we want to think and not wherever the mind takes us in its free roaming nature. That is the essence of this shloka 129. The next one, 130, is a description of the effect of the roaming mind, roaming tendency of the senses on the mind. What happens to the mind when the senses go and dwell on any pleasurable object or experience? Indriyeshu, indriyartheshu, pravritteshu yadrichaya anudhavati tanyeva mano vayamivanalaha. 130. When the senses pursue the objects of desire, however unintentionally, that pursuit acts upon the mind like a wind that fans a flame. As the sense organs freely roam about and establish contact with the objects, so the mind follows the senses. The mind has this tendency of following this. Wherever the sense organs take it, the mind goes unquestioningly. Whether the senses drag the mind in a good direction, helpful direction, or in an unhelpful direction, the mind simply unquestioningly follows the senses. That tendency has to be checked. And the simile given here is, just as a flame of fire follows the wind, in the direction of the wind, the flame also goes. It does not oppose. The mind is like that one. Wherever the sense organs take, the mind unquestioningly follows the sense organs without determining whether that is a good direction or an unhelpful direction. The objects again need not be external. The mind can project its own imagery from the storehouse of impressions and then dwell on those impressions, good or bad. That also has to be curtailed. In the Bhagavad Gita, in the second chapter, Sri Krishna has described what happens when the mind is allowed to follow the senses unquestioningly, just as the flame follows the direction of the wind. This is in verse 62 and 63 and second chapter, and also verse 67. Dhyayato vishayan pumsaha sangasteshu pajayate sangat sanjayate kamaha kamat krodho vijayate. When the mind dwells, dragged by the sense organs, on the sense objects, pleasurable objects or experiences, sangateshu upajayate, the mind gets attached to the experiences or objects of the senses. Sangat sanjayate kamaha. With this attachment, the desire becomes more intense. Kamat krodho vijayate. When the desire is fulfilled, it becomes stronger, as we saw in the case of in the story of Yayati, the king. The more the desires are fulfilled, the stronger the desires become. There is no way of quenching the desires by fulfilling them. It is just like pouring butter onto the flames in order to stop the flame. The flame will only become stronger. If the desires are not fulfilled, and then the anger will come. Oh, I wanted to do that one. That person prevented me. She did not come or he did not come. At the appointed time, anger will come. And then anger makes the person lose his temper and discrimination. Krodhat bhavati sammoha. From anger, delusion will result. Sammoha smriti vibhramaha. Then person loses the power of discrimination under the influence of anger. All kinds of atrocities are committed when the person is angry. Temporarily, that person becomes insane under the influence of anger. Smriti brahmashad buddhi nashaha. Determinative faculty, buddhi, does not function properly when the person is angry. Buddhi nashat pranashyati. When the buddhi or intellect or determinative faculty of the mind is lost, then pranashyati, only destruction will ensue. Person will ruin his or her life by committing all kinds of activities under the influence of anger. So this is the chain of events that follows if we do not stop the mind from following the sense organs wherever the organs drag that one. That is where we have to work. Not when the action already begins, but before the mind goes. When the first impulse comes in the mind, then we have to say, no, this is not right. Let me stop right here. Otherwise the mind becomes stronger and then it's more difficult to catch that one later on. Then again in the 67th verse, in the same second chapter, Sri Krishna says, Indriyanam hi charatam yanmanonu vidhiyate tadasya harati prajnam vayurnavamivam bhasi. Another simile is given here by Sri Krishna to describe this tendency of the mind to follow the senses wherever the senses drag it unquestioningly. Just as a gale of wind pushes away a ship on the waters, the mind that yields to the roving senses carries away his discrimination. That person's discrimination, the ability to judge whether this is right or wrong, is lost. The mind loses that power of discrimination. Once that power of judgment is lost, then there is no saying or telling what that person can do. That person can do good deeds or bad deeds or get into trouble. So, this is the method suggested by Shankaracharya. Now, to illustrate further the evil effect of letting the mind follow the sense organs wherever the organs drag the mind unquestioningly, I like to read a parable that Sri Ramakrishna said. How this tendency to obey the senses, the demands of the senses, can lead a person to ruin is described here in this interesting parable, and with that we shall close. This is from the Bhagavad Gita, second chapter, verse 63. At the end of the verse, this parable has been described. A holy man was living in a temple. Nearby was the house of a prostitute. Noticing how the profligate ones were frequenting her house, he once called the woman and warned her against her evil ways. She lamented over her lot and prayed to the Lord for forgiveness, although she could not put an end to her base profession. The annoyed anchorite, holy man, now started recording her lapses by piling a pebble every time somebody visited her. When the heap of pebbles grew large, the holy man summoned the prostitute to his presence and censured her severely, pointing out to her the pyramid-like enormity of her sins. The heartbroken prostitute died that very night, appealing to the Almighty for deliverance from the debauched body. Strangely enough, that very night the holy man also passed away. The defiled remains of the former was cast away as food to vultures and jackals, but that of the latter was interred with due honors. Lo, the development of this scene was quite different in Yamaloka, in the afterlife. The soul of the prostitute was escorted to Vaikuntha, the abode of Vishnu or heaven, while that of the anchorite, holy man, was consigned to hell. The excited holy man demanded an explanation for this injustice. He said, "You got the wrong man. I should be sent to the heaven. And that lady who was doing all kinds of evil things, she should be sent to hell." The reply came that inviolable justice alone prevailed in the creation of the Lord. Although living in a polluted body, the prostitute's mind was ever fixed on the divine, whereas the mind of the man in the holy body was always wandering on unholy concerns. While the earthly remains of both were fittingly disposed, their souls as well were assigned their fitting regions. Beware of your thoughts, and everything will be all right with you. This person was a holy man by profession, but all the time he was thinking about the evil deeds that the lady was doing. Instead of thinking about God, how many people came tonight to see her, and he would go on keeping the pebbles and counting. This was how he occupied his mind. Instead of thinking about his chosen ideal, he's thinking about how many bad activities that the lady is doing. So the thoughts have to be watched. If we take care of our thoughts, everything will be taken care of. So the watching or the constant monitoring of the thought waves in the mind is what we should be doing, whether we are meditating or not. That should be our constant preoccupation. So with that we shall close.